Welcome to Good Burger Reviews. My name is John, and I'm here to review a brand new 2026 movie, and that movie is Bodycam.
Police, everybody okay in there? Police! Something doesn't feel right. What is this place? What the hell is that? Still with me? Please clear the road.
This movie was directed by Brandon Christensen. It was released to Shudder in March of 2026. It stars Jamie M. Kalika, Sean Rogerson, and Catherine Lowe Haquist. The basic premise: two police officers investigate a domestic dispute, and when they arrive on the scene at the spooky house, their body cameras record all the things that they are about to witness and the giant rabbit hole that they go down trying to figure out what else is watching them other than the cameras. As I had mentioned in my anticipating short of movies coming up in March and April, Bodycam was one that I was really anticipating. It sounded like something that was somewhat new but somewhat done before. Police officers get released to a house with their body cameras on, and when they get there, things aren't what they seem. And this premise was pretty neat for me. And just coming off another movie that's coming to Shudder, Night Patrol, there's a lot to compare between the two because both of them try to tackle some deep concepts, some things that have been going on with the police officers in this current day and age, how the people see the police, and what the police do when the cameras are turned off.
We gotta call it in. Give me a second to think, man. You gotta give me a second. Man, wait.
So let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly on Bodycam. So in the positives, I will put that this movie has all the traditional haunts, spooks, bumps in the nights, creatures, demons, entities, bizarre people doing weird things, and it's all through the lens of the camera attached to the police officer's chest. And I felt like this one was executed overall quite well. And when I think about movies that blend into Bodycam, I think of movies like The Blair Witch Project. I also think of the movie just watched, Night Patrol. But I also think part of what was blending in here, which normally I don't like it when old TV shows blend into current movies, but the way this TV show blended into this movie I thought was kind of neat. One of my favorite TV shows from back in the 1980s called Cops. Cops was a TV show that had everyday police officers in big cities around the U.S. being followed by a camera crew recording everything that they were doing when they were sent to houses, just like in this movie, to figure out what's going on with domestic disputes, drug deals, people speeding, traffic citations, and all that stuff. And this movie was giving me that same exact vibe. Even though these two police officers didn't have a whole camera crew, everything was being recorded through their body cameras. So imagine an episode of Cops that takes the police on Halloween night and they show up at a haunted house. And that was kind of what this was like. So for what seemed like a fairly low budget film, this one had a pretty decent story. Once the police officers get to this house, things start to unravel and they start realizing that there's something more sinister attached to the house. And there was this whole like witchy demonology thing going on where there was like little zodiac symbols on the wall and people, like crews of people, they were called tweakers. They were calling them tweakers. The tweakers were acting really strange, even strange for tweakers.
You took something from us.
What does that mean?
Hey.
I'll also put this in the positives. I would say this story gets pretty deep. Like I said, they go down a rabbit hole. Literally, they go down a hole in this movie. But like, it really gets dark and gruesome in some parts, and it just seems like a never-ending nightmarish dream, and you think at any moment either one of these officers might wake up and realize, oh, that was just a dream. But it just continues and continues to get worse and worse and worse as they start to uncover what the hell started in this strange old house, just on what seemed like a normal everyday street. I mean, it's located in a city. It's in a bad neck of the woods, and they kind of mentioned that a little bit. But it didn't seem any different than any other house until they go inside. The setting was quite spooky. It kind of reminded me of some found footages that we saw recently. I think of one, like there was a movie made by a YouTuber called Milk and Cereal, and I felt like the inside of the house was very similar to that. It kind of reminds me of what I do for my job. I go into city houses sometimes having to take care of things on my job, and sometimes the conditions of the houses are really rough, scary, smelly, just bizarre, just strange, and that's kind of what this house was. It had all sorts of weird things. In every crevice, every corner, there just seemed to be something. Even rats running around as well.
Do you mind?
Oh, excuse me.
Wait! Oh, good Lord! A rat! I hate rats!
Then today ain't your lucky day, Doc.
Another movie that seemed to be blending into this one was a movie that came out, I think, in 2008, Liam Neeson in Taken. And one of our police officers in this movie, it seemed like a lot was getting taken from him. So he went on this like Liam Neeson crusade through the city trying to take back. And there was a few scenes, especially in the second act, where I felt like, okay, we're going down a Taken route. And there was this whole theme from all the satanic cultic type of people, the creepy people in this, they would refer to their enemy, they would say, you took from him, so he'll take from you. And that was pretty creepy, actually. I like that whole aspect. And I'll let that bring me to the mix. So in the mix, I'm going to put the production, because like I said, this seemed to be a low budget film. It is straight to Shudder. It would have been interesting to see how this one would have done in the theater, because it is a found footage style, and I feel like found footage isn't like completely dead. There definitely is a following of people who like found footage. I tend to be mixed on found footage, but this one I felt like the found footage aspect was okay, though there was some real shaky cam scenes, because like they're running and it's body cameras, and it literally like there's like 30, 40, 50-second periods where it's like just shaking and you don't even know what you're seeing. But the other thing I'm going to put in the mix too is that sometimes it seemed like I questioned the fact was every scene that was filmed actually had real actors and actresses in it. It seemed like some of the scenes, especially some of the scenes where the officers was walking in and they had their guns pointed, and it just seemed like the way the gun was angled, the way their arm was, the way the necklace that was dangling off his wrist, it just seemed like the entire scene, along with everything that we were seeing through the body camera, looked like the same type of graphics that you would watch in a well put together video game, but it looked like a video game world in parts. There's also scenes later on in the movie where they're driving around in their cop car, and I felt like it was the same thing. I thought, am I watching a movie or am I watching video game play? Now, it didn't take me completely out of the movie, because at the end of the day, we are watching footage through a body camera, and we know that those types of cameras aren't always quality cameras. And it showed in this film. I thought they did, for most part, a decent job when it looked like a camera of what we were watching. Put this in the mix as well. I had said this about the movie Night Patrol, where they were really tackling the whole idea of how police and their status in today's world has dropped because of people, viewing them in a negative light based on things that have happened in the public media over the last 5 to 7 years. And I think they really tackle that in this movie, and they delve into it more than Night Patrol. They really examine what you think how an officer reacts to what he's going to do based on how the public might view him afterwards. And sometimes that whole concept can be a troubling idea, because you really would hope that a police officer would behave in a way where they're just trying to solve the crime, get down to the bottom of things, and not worry about, well, if I did this and it looks bad and I might get crucified later on the media, I'll make a wrong choice just to kind of cover that up. And we have that going on in this movie.
This is the police. I'm coming down the stairs. Hey, hey, show me your hands. Sir, show me your hands. We gotta call it in. Give me a second to think, man. You gotta give me a second. Man, man.
Now, part of the reason I'm mixed on it is I like when movies like this bring up crucial issues, but I felt like they brought it up in the first two acts, but then it just, when the demon parts of the story takes over, it just seems like they never really wrapped up that point. And I'll let this bring me to the negatives. So on this one, in the negatives, I would say, like all movies that start off like this, and this sometimes feels gimmicky, you know, oh, here we go, body camera, police, you know, is it a gimmick? And for the most part, it kind of was. I still feel like it was executed well. But I think the negative aspect of this whole thing, of this movie, was it suffered in the ending. Trying to wrap up the mystery, intrigue, and horror that they created in the front two acts, and then trying to figure out, well, how is this really going to end? And what are they kind of backing up their story with? And it just kind of, they just keep going deeper and deeper down this hole. And I felt like in the last 15 minutes, we were getting to an end. And this movie's short. Like, it was listed as an hour and 15 minutes. And I thought, okay. But in the last 15 minutes, it felt like it was dragging because you thought it was over. And then they add this whole additional part. And I thought, we could have ended already. I felt like there was just a little bit overstuffed in the final act.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you are looking for ransom, I can tell you I don't have money. But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I have acquired over a very long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for people like you. If you let my daughter go now, that'll be the end of it. I will not look for you. I will not pursue you. But if you don't, I will look for you. I will find you. And I will kill you.
So let me get into some spoilers here, because this one is definitely, I think I can pull it all together with telling the story a little bit, and we can figure out if you want to skip to the rating. It is streaming on Shudder right now. I am giving it a recommend, so check it out and then come back and check out the spoiler section. Okay, so like I said, the movie starts off and you feel like you're in an episode of Cops, and you have two police officers in their cruiser, and they're kind of chit-chatting, doing typical everyday cop talk, a little jazzing and razzing of each other, and they get it's not long into their little conversations, as we're starting to learn a little bit about each character, that they get a call from their dispatch saying that there is a domestic disturbance, and an officers need to be en route, so they must have been the closest, so they agreed to go to the residence. And when they get there, like, the street it seemed to be in a bad neck of the woods, which they had addressed. And then they get there, the house is very creepy and very dark, and they go in, and they're trying to announce themselves, and no one's answering. And then this is when we started seeing a lot of them with their guns out, because they started to be alarmed, because they could hear things. They could hear someone screaming. There's another part where they could hear a baby crying, so they know there are people in the house. But it just seemed like every room that they would kind of try to go in and clear, there was no one in.
1023, we were attempting contact. Police, everybody okay in there? Police!
And then I thought, made kind of, they split. So one officer goes down, another officer goes up. So Officer Jackson goes up, and he finds this like really creepy lady acting strange in one of the bedrooms, and Officer Bryce goes down, and he finds this man in the basement, and that was when he finds the man standing in the basement, the way he's facing the wall reminded me of the Blair Witch. But then he turns around, and he's got something over his hands. The officer is yelling, put your hands down, show me your hands, show me your hands. He's not responsive. Of course, everyone that's in this house is just, they seem possessed. They seem abnormal. They just don't even seem like typical like domestic dispute type of people. They just seem messed up. And it doesn't seem like they're messed up over drugs. It seems like it's leaning into the spooky, satanic, cultic type of messed up. And, you know, the officers, I think, initially are thinking, oh, these guys are on drugs or something. But Bryce and the man get into a scuffle into the basement, and he ends up shooting him. Meanwhile, Jackson's upstairs, and he's dealing with the crazy woman who's just acting strange, and she's all bloody as well. He hears the gunshot, he comes down, and then they realize, oh crap, you killed him. And then they took what was covering his hands off, and what was under this like towel was a baby. And it looked like the baby died too. And I'm like, oh crap, here we go. Officer shot someone, man down, and they should really call it in. But what do? They immediately start thinking, Officer Bryce starts thinking, uh-oh, this is going to look bad for me. And this is where I was saying how, like, he's thinking of how the media is going to view it and how his career and how his life could go into a frenzy if this doesn't get straightened up the right way. Because the man didn't have a gun. So technically his life wasn't really in danger, and he shouldn't have shot him. Shouldn't have killed him. Shouldn't shoot to kill. You should shoot to defend, but shoot to maim. Well, anyhow, he's instantly going into this mode where he wants to cover it up, not call back, figure out a way to say, oh, we came and then we left. Then, meanwhile, the woman that was acting strange upstairs ends up in the backyard, and they're like, well, she's here, she's going to know. And they're in the backyard trying to get her situated. And the next thing you know, she's acting all demonic and crazy as well. The next thing you know, just in Smile format, she like whips out this knife, like the girl in the front scene of Smile, and slits her neck and dies. And I'm like, okay, that was weird. What was that for? Then it's at this time, they're still debating whether or not they should call it in or they should try and cover up their actions. Now, Officer Jackson, who at this point hadn't done anything out of sorts, is pushing to call it in. Where Officer Bryce is like, oh, no, I've got a wife, I've got a baby on the way, I've got a life, I don't want this to blow up and ruin my career, ruin my life. And that's when they notice the satanic stuff painting on the wall, and there's all these bizarre zodiac type of symbols. So they're going to their car, and they're going to figure out a way of how they're going to make this all go away. And they decide to go to this place that looked like a pawn shop. And in this place, they find a lady that they know, and I guess she's on the up and up, or maybe the opposite of the up and up, and she's going to figure out how to crack the code to erase what's on their body cams, because they know at the end of their shift, everything that's been recorded on their body cam, which recorded all of this, is going to be sent to a database, which will sit there if not needed to be viewed for 90 days. And then after 90 days, it'll automatically delete. And they feel like that's too long of a window to wait in case something comes up and their cameras need to view. So they definitely want to erase the footage. Well, soon as Jackson says, oh, I want to watch the footage before we erase it, just so I know what I'm getting myself into. And they watch the footage, and that's when the girl realizes that there's something strange on this footage that's making her say, like, oh no. Like, I guess she sees the symbols, she sees all the satanic signs, and she's like, oh no, I'm not getting involved in this. And she quickly wants to get up and get out of there, and she takes off. So now they're like, oh crap, what are we going to do? So Officer Jackson decides to take Officer Bryce to his mother's house. And as soon as the mother opens the door, she's like, I told you not to come in your police outfit. And it was a whole thing about him being a police officer. And this was another thing that reminded me of Night Patrol, because the one officer, one of her sons was an officer, the other son was in a gang, and they hated the police in the community, and it was the same exact setup. They didn't trust the police. And she did a very convincing job of really making it seem like this is the type of world that we live in. We need to protect ourselves even from the police.
You think that badge you're wearing makes any sort of difference in a place like this?
Who are you?
But because it's her son, she lets them in, and she starts trying to help patch them up, because in all the scuffle, he ended up getting injuries as well. So they're trying to patch him up, and they're trying to get down to the bottom of this. But But it seems as though mom is hosting some sort of weird group at her house, and it was also noted that it was 2 in the morning, and I thought, what type of group is she having at her house at 2 in the morning? Definitely one that doesn't like police. Well, the mom started realizing that they were tied into something cultic and something crazy, so she wanted them out of the house too, because she kind of did this like little seance reading on Officer Bryce, and she started to realize like, oh crap, they're in deep, and whatever it is that's got them, that's about to stalk them, is going to get her as well. They leave the house and they end up seeing a bunch of tweakers on the street that kind of try to roadblock them. It was a really bizarre scene, and then eventually they sign their way through. And it's very clear that the tweakers don't like the police either. But it also was clear that the tweakers seemed like more than tweakers. They seemed like they were a little possessed as well. And this is when Officer Bryce wants to call to his wife. Now, he already called to his wife once and talked to her when he first shot the guy back at the house. Then he's calling again, and she's not answering. And they kept saying, I take something from you, you took something from him, we'll take something from you. And I was getting the sense, for sure, that they were going to try and take the wife's fetus or baby. And they can't find her, and they end up going back to Officer Bryce's house, but his wife's not there. What's there is the officer that ran out of the pawn store, or whoever that was, the lady that was in the pawn store that was going to help them with the body cams, is all tied up in there. And she's like, oh, you brought it to me, and the minute you left, they came and brought me here and tied me up. So like, and then she also seems at this point possessed. So now they're definitely deep into this journey, and it seems like everywhere they go, everywhere they show up, it's just a dead end. They just keep getting stuck. Once Officer Bryce realizes that his wife is missing, that's when he started taking the Liam Neeson Taken approach, and he started basically pulverizing people, trying to figure out where his wife is. And he wanted to get her back because she was taken. So they go into that for a while. He ends up shooting himself when he feels like everything's gone wrong, but he turns into a demon. But that's when Officer Jackson had this Heather Donahue scene where he's sitting in the cop car, and it's like he's recording his last, like what he feels will be his like last moments of what he wants to say. And it kind of reminded me of Heather in the Blair Witch when she's got the camera all close and she's all whimpering about, you know, how they got into the woods. And he did a pretty good performance there. I was actually pretty impressed with that. So I would say there was definitely a lot of Blair Witch influence on this one. They end up going back to the house, and this is more scenes where I thought it was becoming like a video game. When they would drive to the street, and there was this other scene where Jackson is driving, and it seems like no matter where he's turning, he's in the big part of the city where the buildings are tall, but this little house is on every corner. It just seems like he can't get away from it. So they go back to the house, and there was this giant hole in the bottom of the basement, and they go down the hole, and that's where all this crazy satanic stuff starts happening. And this is where it starts to go off the rails a little bit. I mean, it was pretty scary and pretty intense. And I wasn't sure how scary this was going to get, but it started to get pretty intense. Even though sometimes the graphics would throw me off, I ended up really liking this story.
Something doesn't feel right.
What is this place?
What the hell is that? What is happening here? Michelle! Who are you?
So it all ends in a little bit of a predictable way, because I kind of got the sense that they definitely wanted, you take something from me, I'll take something from you. So they were going to take the baby. And in the final scene, it's all the satanic demons, and they're literally taking the baby right out of her. And I thought it was over with that. You know, they end up doing, the mom comes back and gets involved, brings 2 more officers, and it kind of goes through the beginning of the movie slightly again. And this is where it felt extended. But at the end of the day, this was a good one-time watch. I really enjoyed it. You know, I enjoyed the story, I enjoyed the acting, I enjoyed the mystery, the intrigue, and the horror. So we're gonna get down to business on Bodycam. So for a low budget horror, I felt like it was a good one-time watch. I really enjoyed it. And at the end of the day, I like seeing the police drama blended with a spooky haunted house tale. There were some parts where I felt like they were literally in a haunted house or Hellfest, especially when they were in the first house. So at the end of the day, we're gonna give this one a good burger because I felt like I really was pulled in and engaged with the entire story and liked. This is Johnny with Good Burgers saying, please like, subscribe, tap that notification bell, all that jazz. Don't forget to stay scared of those demons that take over the hood and spooky possessed houses the cops have to investigate.
Viewer discretion is advised.
Better stop, Ryan. Coming for you. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Put your hands behind your back.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
Cops is filmed on location with the men and women of law enforcement. All suspects are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.